Hello, and welcome to Manifest Minifest, Round 2, a short play festival by New Manifest Theater. I am Simone Alexander, the producing artistic director of New Manifest and the moderator for this festival. I'd like to start by thanking our wonderful sponsor, Six Square, Austin's Black Cultural District, for helping make this event free this year. I'd also like to thank our playwrights, panelists, actors, directors, and ensemble members who helped make this year's festival happen, as well as the Austin Community College interns who are providing ASL interpretation for this event. A little bit about our festival. Manifest Minifest was created with the idea of collaboration as well as showcasing our ensemble of artists. This year, due to the pandemic, we decided to pivot to offer the show virtually and also to include artist workshops for our community. Obviously, going virtual has its own ups and downs, and we apologize in advance for any technical issues that might pop up and hope you'll be patient with us as we pray to the internet gods. Today, we are kicking off the festival with our playwriting workshop with Idris Goodwin, who is the playwright of New Manifest Theater's inaugural production of The Realness, a breakbeat play, and Kristiana Colón, who's the playwright of our production from earlier this year, the Texas premiere of Good Friday, as well as our Minifest selection, Covenant, which we will see later this evening. I feel so grateful to have produced both of their works and really look forward to this workshop. So I'd like to go ahead and bring Kristiana and Idris in. I'll pop back up at the end of the workshop to do a little Q&A, so feel free to drop any questions that you might have into the YouTube chat. And the floor is yours, so feel free to introduce yourselves and the kind of work that you do.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kristiana.
Oh, hey.
What's going on?
I like this radio voice and mic that you got going on.
Listen. This is, you're given a platform. You got to make sure you're crisp and clear.
Good. Am I coming through crisp and clear?
You're crisp and clear, per usual.
Great.
Are you in Chicago?
I am in Chicago. What about you?
What's the vibe like?
The sun is setting, so hopefully I'll get enough daylight to stay outside for the remainder of this chat. Mm-hmm. But the weather is rallying. It was summer was real over last week, but in a slight resurgence, so that's cool.
So, this is what I propose for this format. And, I don't know if there's a chat or anything like that for this, but I thought that, you're a writer I've known a long time, but I haven't seen you in a long time. And I don't know what you're working on. And I don't know, what your, how your aesthetic has grown or what you're interested in. So I thought some of this can be a conversation. And along the way, we can sort of pull out some of those juicy nuggets that might be useful to our writing friends out there who might be tuned in, as well as any specific questions that our writing friends out in the world might have. And so I feel like we could sort of warm up and just kind of get some thoughts like kind of percolating, and then we could field questions and then offer tips along the way. What do you think?
That sounds really great.
Yeah, good. How do you feel about that, Simone and New Manifest?
Great.
Okay, I'm getting a great with an exclamation point. So I'm in Colorado again. I was living in Louisville for 2 years. Shout out city of Louisville. My heart goes out to you all right now. But I came back to Colorado in August, like top of August, to become the director of the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, which is a multidisciplinary arts center that is currently closed to the public. So we've just been doing our digital thing as we plot and plan for the future. How has this COVID affected you, Kristiana, just generally as a human being, but also as more specifically as a writer?
Well, I think I've had a very sort of charmed COVID experience, because I had to show up as the pandemic was unfolding, Good Friday at New Manifest, and we managed to like close the show before everything shut down, so the show did not get interrupted. I felt really blessed about that. I was commissioned Lyrical, working with their Empower Youth program, developing an original, yeah, fancy, developing an original libretto for a group of Black teenagers from the Chicago Urban League. So teaching opera to high school students on the South Side and devising / writing, developing an original libretto for them to perform. Sadly, they were not able to perform it. So that was interrupted, but I was able to complete out my commission contract with them and finish that before everything shut down. Yeah, so that was really a blessing. And I don't know if I've talked to you since becoming a parent, but I have a kid now, and he is 1. And so being able to just like cancel everything and be at home, we were definitely just starting to transition into like having regular childcare, so that I could maybe have like a writing schedule. And so that stopped, and it's just like me and my kid at home. But like I find great pleasure in hanging out with my 1-year-old. So that was, so all in all, I would say that I've been very, very blessed. And oh God, am I about to say this in public? Okay, so then the new thing is that I have joined the writer's room for The Shy. So I also feel really blessed to be having a writing job in the pandemic, that I can do remotely. Yeah. And I haven't told anyone. I've like been off social media and have taken a hiatus from public life, because I don't want it to be a thing. And it's no, it's a thing that like I'm struggling to balance against like my frontline protest uprising activity. So I haven't really told anyone about my writer's room job, because I don't want it to be like a thing.
It is a thing,
but it's a thing.
That's actually good news. Yeah.
You know,
we need something to cut through all this bad news.
So I'm like a part of a writers union now. So it's my real job, Mom.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so I've been making the pivot from stage to screen, which I was very resistant to for a long time, because I'm kind of a theater purist in that like, you know, it's raw and it's real and it's live and it's ephemeral, and like being able to like see the beads of sweat on the people in front of you, like you really can't beat that.
True. All facts.
But you know, another one of my life's missions is to use my talent, to use my platforms, to use my art, to catalyze social change, and in particular to create a canon of abolitionist media. And so I finally reached a point where I was like, you know, if I have access to mass media platforms, then, you know, like I want to be abolitionist consciousness into media that's going to reach millions of people instead of hundreds. So, you know, like as much as I deeply, deeply love and am passionate about the intimate experience of theater, you know, I finally was like, okay, I'm ready to take this leap. So
yeah, you'll be back. You'll be backstage and going. The stage will be waiting for you when you come back.
Yeah.
And you
I
left
mean,
us. You left the theater with our. You got joints, so you left the theater with pieces. They're doing one night.
right. Yeah. And I got some unproduced ones on deck. So if anyone's trying to get this unproduced world premiere work, like come and get it, in 2022 or whenever we're allowed to gather in person again.
Who knows? I think that's so appropriate. I mean, I can think of no more appropriate writer for a show like The Chi than you. Born and raised in Chicago, still hold it down in Chicago. What did Chicago? Let me back this up and say that you to me are a real tried and true Chicago writer. And for our audience who may not know what that means, I mean, what has that meant for you, on your journey, as a writer? Because you've been writing in creative spaces pretty much your whole life, right?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I get asked about my story, like how did you become a writer, like you get a shout out, like you are a part of my genesis story. Real talk. And so, I have been writing creatively pretty much since I could hold a pencil, since I was small. Like I would write plays for my stuffed animals and like have them acted out. So that has kind of been in me since I was a baby. And then as a teenager, I discovered Young Chicago Authors, a youth literary organization in Chicago that provides free writing workshops for teenagers and also produces Louder Than a Bomb, which is the largest teen poetry festival on the planet. And so I'm like an LTAB OG, and Idris, you were my coach my second year competing in LTAB. And so the world of competitive poetry, spoken word, is really sort of how I started to think about writing as a career. Up until I met people like you and Tara Betts and Anna West and Nikki Patan, I didn't really know any artists whose job was their art. Like I conceived of that only in the framework of celebrity, like, you're Toni Morrison or you're Beyonce or you're Maya Angelou, right? Like I didn't know professional artists who took the bus. And so being sort of immersed in this community of teaching artists and working artists really changed my career path. And I was like, okay, so I don't have to major in journalism or marketing in order for writing to be my career. I can pursue my creative writing as my career. And so you were very influential in that way. And then, I think the next evolution, like, poet, MC, teacher, playwright, like you were the person that like was my example of that. So, then I'm like, I want to be like Idris, and I also rap. And and I think acting in some of your early plays at Prop Theater and getting some production experience was super transformative. And then when I realized that this like long ass persona poem that I wrote in one of Nikki's workshops became the beginning of my play, like you were the person that I turned to for advice of like, how do I write a play? So that is kind of like my genesis story of how Chicago, and in particular the Chicago community of spoken word artists and teaching artists, working artists, transformed my perspective of what was possible for me and what options are available for me as having writing be my profession and my career. And then, Chicago is like, to me, Chicago produces like the highest quality artists across the board, because like Chicago doesn't take no shit and Chicago doesn't give a shit. Like, it's like, okay, so you won XYZ award. What are you doing now? Like, nobody's impressed with you. For better or for worse, really, like, like the Chicago theater community really was not rocking with me until I had a play go up in London. And then it was like, oh,
you must be somebody.
Right. This play that Kristiana has been sending us for 8 years. Now we're going to read it. And so, I think that attitude means that Chicago artists grind harder than anybody.
I think thicker skin too, and more realistic expectations, not low expectations, but just we don't have that sort of, I still say we, look at that, it's branded for life. There is no you understand the scale, you understand what you're doing, like you're working. And that's what you're doing. If you get a few accolades or a few cherries on top, great. But you're working. The work is the work.
Yeah. And I think having that multidisciplinary edge is also a super Chicago thing. And just like, the Cold Winters forged character. Like if you're trying to grind it out in a place that has vortex, like, you got to be passionate about something.
Yeah. Super facts. So just to go back a few steps, can you talk a little bit about that moment of, and again, by the way, I was not fishing for acknowledgement when I asked about Chicago, truthfully.
But I love to give you props and give you credit. And I'm like, so glad I get to do it to your face, because literally when I'm like in these pitch meetings or when everyone's like, so what's your story? Like I'm always shouting you out. So
Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. And I'm grateful that I didn't steal money from you or something like that. I didn't like not pay you or whatever. I mean, if I didn't pay you, I said I wasn't going to pay you. But
right.
You know what I mean? What was I going to say? So the moment where, because I think that's actually a pretty key moment where poets or MCs, for me, I started as an MC, as a rapper, and then decided, I think I'm going to try to write a script, and I think that's such a powerful moment. What was it like, if you can go back to that moment, like what was it that made you think you could do that, in terms of format, so we all have those people who give us the invitation, but we answer the invitation because there's a part of us that thinks like, I can do that. I think I have the equipment to do that. So what was it about that form or format that was appealing to you as a writer? And so that's the first part of my question. And the second part of my question is, what did you bring with you from the world of poetry, particularly performance poetry? And then what from the world of performance poetry did you have to leave behind? That's a lot of questions.
Those are great questions. And with them, I'll just take the opportunity to throw some shade. Like you were shitting on Lin-Manuel Miranda of like writing the Lyrical play like a decade and a half before Hamilton. And so anyway, so you paved the way, like you showed me how to do that. But also like as a kid, and particularly like a super dreamy, romantic adolescent, like I read a lot of Shakespeare, and like Shakespeare's writing in verse. Shakespeare's writing plays in verse. Like it's not, Lin-Manuel Miranda did not invent the play written in verse, right? And then like, the rappers that I know, you and others in the community, like, the multisyllabic rhyme scheme game is crazy, right? So I'm like, okay, Shakespeare's doing it in iams, and I think I can do something more raw than that. And like this white man is not going to have the market cornered on like lyrical drama for the next 500 years. It's time for a Black woman to take that crown. So I'm at Shakespeare's neck, basically.
Let's go.
And so there's that piece of, like that lyrical, and even when, I'm not writing in verse explicitly or not writing like dialogue that rhymes explicitly, the poetic voice and a sense of lyricism is definitely a part of my voice as a playwright, and you can expect that texture to show up in any of my plays. Mm-hmm. And I think what I had to learn in my early playwriting was, because I was coming from the background of spoken word and like direct address, like the first draft of my first play was mostly a collection of monologues. Like it took me a while to shift gears into like characters don't just talk at each other for 3 minutes, you know, or like page long chunks. And yeah, so like shifting away from my plays being like a collection of monologues into dialogue, and then you know, because I was already coming from this place of formal experimentation, I really leaned into that. So you'll see a lot of simultaneous dialogue in my plays. You'll see a lot of simultaneous, like split screen, like two scenes happening at once, zippered together, type of things. And I'm always really interested in the musicality of scenes. So even if a play is not explicitly, you know, like written in verse or lyrical, like there is a meter to it that I think is informative for actors. There is a music to it, like I am hearing the voices as different instruments in a jazz ensemble, and writing in that way. And so I think I brought those sensibilities, both from spoken word and from hip hop, into my dramatic work.
And what did you have to kind of, so I feel like you alluded to this a little bit maybe already. It's just like, what is the thing that, you know, I know for me myself, the thing that challenges me consistently is, you know, in rap, there's shorthand and there's reference. There's like references on top of references on top of references. And so you don't have to like explain the hell out of everything. It's just like, you know what I mean by this, right? So my turn of phrase, my inference, my tone is short. It, to me, is a form of shorthand. So it's like, because I've got this contained box, you know, everything's not, the way that we receive information is not sort of linear or chronological, right? So it's like through refrain of the hook, you get what I'm saying, that we gonna be all right, right? And so you know, and so the thing that I struggled with for a long time, and still do sometimes, is sort of dramaturgy. This thing of like, you got to seed everything out and lay it out and make sure it's clear. And if you have references, you don't have to necessarily explain what they are, but they have to. You just can't layer as much as you can with you know, I think with lyric, with the context of song. You know, there's something I envy about music and singer-songwriters in general, is the expectation we have of a song is not so, there's just more room for abstraction. There's more room for feeling. The music is going to, the feeling, the notes are going to convey something that the words don't necessarily have to. And so, you know, that is something I know that I left behind, that I have to leave behind when I have my playwright hat on, is that I'm just like, you just can't even do that here. But I don't know. How do you feel about that? I mean, maybe you.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of lean in the opposite direction. Like I lean into that. You know, that shorthand or the abstraction. I'm like really okay with people not getting it. You know, in particular, you know, I always say that I am explicitly not writing for the white gaze. And so, you know, I'm really leaning into like, what is the shorthand that Black people and people of color have that like I don't have to explain? And you know, the dialogue is fast, and yes, people talk over each other, and guess what, if you don't hear everything, that's okay, come back and see it again, or you know, like you get what you get from it, and that's okay. And so, you know, I think another poetic sensibility that I have brought into my dramatic work, is being really okay with abstraction. And a lot of times, you know, for me, playwriting feels like channeling. Like, you know, I get into a groove and, you know, I come back and I read it later and I'm like, oh, wow, she's really smart. I wrote that. You know, where'd that come from? And so even I don't feel the need to understand it all on the first pass. Like, I trust where it's coming from. And I trust that images will be resonant, and how they land on people emotionally will be prismatic. And I'm, you know, I love it when people are like, oh man, it was so smart how you did the XYZ. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah, it was.
I meant to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I find that really comes from, you know, that poetic sensibility of building an image, an extended metaphor, and just letting it breathe and not having to, you know, put too much exposition around it.
So you think, would you say that that's a good amount of sort of writing with confidence? Or does that come from
it's confidence or ego? either one.
Well, I think that comes from, but I think it comes from you know, this sort of like I stay ready so I ain't got to get ready. Meaning, I think that because you've been writing for so long from such a young age, I think perhaps there's an awareness of what's in the toolbox and how to use those tools, and and so it's like, you know, I know that this is beautiful, so I'm not going to really waste time on, you know, it's like those beholders who also can see what it is. Like those are the people that will draw. Yeah, I feel you on that, and that's actually good for me to hear. I also think that is a generational thing. I think that I think that you are of a better informed and braver generation than mine. So this is
because I had teachers like you.
Yeah. Wow. See, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
There. Not mad at you. All right, good stuff. So, you know, you got me thinking about lyric and the importance of lyric, because I would actually contend that there's like sort of levels and range to it. And so you said like characters don't really talk at each other for 3 minutes, which I think is funny and spot on. But you do also make me wonder about, I have a controversial thought that all dialogue, all writing in a play in some way, shape, or form, you know, is constructed, is styled, even so, like, you know, naturalistic dialogue, which I think is ridiculous, is still styled and still is its own sort of form of poetry in a way. So if we were going to give one quick assignment to all our people, well, first of all, let me just check in. Simone, how's everybody doing in the chat? First of all, is there anyone there? Or did we lose everyone when Kristiana started giving me props?
Yes, we're getting lots of praise and accolades.
Oh, for real? Okay, cool. Oh, okay. See, I was looking in the wrong thing. I was looking in the private chat, so I need to be where the comments is at. Okay. Great. These are wonderful questions. So let's just really quickly field some questions, and then in my head there's a prompt brewing that we'll give folks in a few minutes. So one question I'm seeing is around, do y'all have writing schedules? And as parents of, I also have a new 1-year-old. I have a second child who is turned 1 last weekend. So we are both going through the 1-year-old playwright struggles. Playwright with a 1-year-old struggles. Do you have a writing schedule, and what's y'all's process, especially when you feel stuck? I also shout out the word y'all's, which I love, the pluralization of y'all, which makes me love it. What is y'all, and possessive, the double pluralization?
I mean, I love a double apostrophe.
Hell yeah.
So I'm gonna answer this first because I feel like I'm the more hot mess between the two of us, which is to say that like I have really struggled with a writing schedule since becoming a mom, and I would say like that is the single biggest hurdle for me in terms of like getting back to feeling like myself. And I know that like that's not supposed to be the goal. It's never going to be how it was. But there is a certain sense of myself that I would like to reclaim. And part of that is like being able to start and finish a script. The lyric opera libretto notwithstanding, because I did start and finish that. But I mean, something that has come from my own, you know, heart and inspiration that is not a commission.
Yeah.
And so that has been really hard. But in the past, when I am like in generative mode, for me, you know, again, like I think this is a bit of a hot mess. But like I need like long stretches of uninterrupted time. Like I always say my muse is kind of a diva. And I think part of my motherhood struggle right now is like learning how to create in a new way that doesn't require like 8 to 14 hours of solitude, because that's just like not a thing right now.
Yeah.
But you know, what I used to need is like wake up in the morning, smoke some weed, drink some coffee, do some yoga, then start to listen to the music of the play. And then maybe like 3 or 4 hours into a writing session, I might start actually writing the stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like in like a trance for the next, you know, 4, 6, 8 hours. And that kind of like marathon writing, and I'll do that back to back to back. That kind of marathon writing is really where I felt like magic and inspiration. And I think what I need now as a mom and as a grown up is like a daily writing regimen where I like get up, maybe don't smoke weed, meditate, do yoga, and like write for 1 or 2 hours. And I have not been able to like wrangle that discipline inside myself yet. But reading has been the thing that I've been able to do instead of writing. And so I know that like feeding my muse good stuff, you know, good nutritious stuff. Like I always say the creative body is very much like the physical body in that way.
Yeah.
Like if you want good stuff to come out, you got to put good stuff in. So, so that has been, you know, how I'm continuing to nourish myself, even though I'm not in the type of writing schedule or writing practice that I would ideally like to be in.
Yeah, that's
what about you? What's your schedule like?
Well, no, but I feel you, and I resonate with that a lot because, you know, I have a 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, and so just as we were turning the corner on, okay, this kid can start to sleep on his own now better, and he's becoming a little man now. He's becoming a, you know, we went and said, oh, let's have another one. Let's do this again, and so. You know, it's a struggle. I mean, it really.
The temperature just dropped 5 degrees in Chicago.
Okay, of course it did. And so, really, now I'll be honest. Like, I feel, and I say this, and I'm not saying this as like hyperbole or like as a boast. I'm saying this literally. Like, I just feel like a script writing machine. And you know, and that doesn't mean that the things that I'm writing aren't things that I feel connected to or, you know, whatever, but it is just like, I sort of just push these things out, but for deadlines, you know, in a state often of like, okay, all right, I can do this 45 minutes. I'll stay up all night, you know, but it doesn't feel in that way you said trance, like where you know, it's just, you start to realize time and how different it was, you know, when, you could just be kind of in the zone and in your world, and your whole life is kind of the thing you're working on for a while. And now it's much more segmented. So right now, my schedule, there is no schedule. It's just whenever I can, however I can, using whatever tools that I can. Either I'm doing a dictation, or I'm writing on my phone, or I'm writing on a this or that or whatever. It's like Google Docs is saving my life because I can just access the file all the time. And as far as feeling stuck, like I don't get to feel stuck. I can't get stuck because the machine cannot break. The machine is the machine. So yeah, there is no getting stuck. I got over that years ago. There's no writer's block. There's no getting stuck. It's just
okay. I feel like neither of us have said anything helpful for the people though.
I disagree. I feel like we're killing it. But listen, you getting quotables, yo. Priya just quoted you. Yeah, Priya just quoted you. If you want good stuff to come out, you got to put good stuff in. Yeah. So okay. So we answered those questions. So I would say, so here's I'm concocting a little prompt here for the folks. So what did you, in your opinion, what is quality lyric? What is the quality for you of a lyric, of a good lyric? What does a good lyrical line in either a poem or a play? Because for you, I feel like there's a very blurry line, if one at all. What are the characteristics of solid lyric?
An uncanny or surprising or otherwise subversive use of language that once it hits the ether feels like the only way that particular idea could have been said.
What's a really good lyric, really good lyrical line that you did not write?
This is the very first thing that popped into my head is a Saba lyric. And you know, he's got so many great ones. This is not the best one, but it's the one that like every time I hear it, like I just see so clearly. Just got me a hoopty I could get from A to B. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's like so simple, but like I know that's life. I know that struggle. You know, like it puts me in a place, you know, like with him in his life. And I'm in it. Like I feel the texture of the car, like what it's like to be like smoked out in that car and like hoping that your muffler doesn't fall off as you're going from one gig to the next.
And so what is a solid lyric line that you did write?
Oh gosh.
What's your favorite? What's like one that makes you smile? Like when you know, we all got our favorites.
Oh man. Damn. Man, there's so many. You want me to pick a favorite?
Yeah, just one. Just, one or two.
It's about Chicago. It's from my song Traffic with my brother. The city is a river where fresh pool sharks swim. They told my Corolla, but now I got my car again.
There you go. I love that these are both car lyrics that you're working with. This is
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think those are both great. And what I like about both of them, to your point, is that they're in the sort of great Chicago blues tradition, is that they are clear, they're accessible, they're seemingly simple. They're not over, there's beautiful music in them, but they're not over our head. You're not using fancy language or esoteric references. You're making sure they're at a level where everybody could understand what you mean. You know what I mean? And to me, that's also the characteristic of, I think, solid lyric, is that they are simple but complex. All right, so here is the prompt for everyone. So, scene writing 101. A scene is typically, not all the time, but on a most basic level, it's usually what's happening is that someone is in pursuit of some sort of change or information. Somebody's in pursuit of something. And the scene, to me, my favorite scenes are not necessarily them getting the thing. It's not the scene where they get the thing. It's when they maybe get one step closer to the thing, or they gain maybe better understanding about themselves or whatever. But and then in the process, the audience gets the necessary information that they need to move on in the story. Okay. So basically, to simplify that down, a scene is typically about the character in pursuit or in resistance. So either I want change or change is happening and I want change to stop, right? But it's about these kinds of things. So I want everyone to write a very, very tiny micro scene, because this is a mini fest. We're going to write a mini scene. I want it to have And so it's just two characters, two voices of any, background, race, gender, whatever. But two voices. And there needs to be 4 lines for each character. So there's 8 lines total in this little scene, at least a minimum. If you go longer, great. But it's a back and forth, right? So one person gets a line, another person gets a line. Okay. Let me know if I'm getting too complicated. And you decide which character is in pursuit of something, which character is in resistance of something. You decide who that is. But here's the thing about the scene that I want is that every line should be a lyric. Every line should be lyrical. So we don't want any quote unquote naturalistic dialogue. Try to push yourself to write lyrical lines based on this criteria that the great Kristiana Colón has laid down about what the characteristics of lyric is, are, am. Doing your best in your own voice, your own style, lyric that reflects who you are and where you come from. And we'll take 10 minutes to do these, and then we'll come back and we'll do like quick little lightning round. We'll read around. Actually, we'll do less than that. We'll do 8 minutes. Cool. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm taking that as a yes. Okay. 8 minutes. Write your little mini lyrical exchange, and we will come back. All right. All right. First of all, just want to say shout out. Is it Remy? Is it Remy? Is that our interpreter?
Yeah.
Shout out Remy. You crushing it, keeping up. You know what I'm
and really... Bianca. Shout out Remy and Bianca for
Remy and Bianca. Shout out both of them. They be working, yo.
Yeah.
I especially love the facial expressions, like you know what I mean? Just like that's my favorite. All right. Simone, what is the best way to share these joints together? Can folks like chime in and read what they have, or do they want Kristiana and I to be their two actors for all of their writing?
Simone says no writings have been shared yet.
Okay, all right. Did you write anything, Kristiana?
I did. It's yeah.
Bring that up fire.
Oh boy. Okay. I haven't read a free write in public in a long time. And so two voices. Yeah. Okay. Deference is for jealous types, and that ain't my thing. I just want to sing you. How about you just sing? How about I bring you a blunt and we blow notes and rings? How about he bring us the check? You steady come with the sting. You knew my sun when you swiped, but your moon was in Libra. You steady reading my chart when I need you to see me.
Let's go.
That's it.
It is Libra season also, by the way. My scale brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
All right. Any other writing to throw into the chat? Well, listen, while we wait for folks to come with it, what is the play right now, Kristiana, that you are most desperate to write? Meaning, if the super nanny floated into your house and was like, "I've got it. I'll take it from here, Kristiana." And you went to a silent writing retreat. Like, yeah. What is the play like? Just right here, like, let me out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer that question in two ways. One, if I were to get that magical writing retreat, I really just need like 3 weeks in the woods. I would probably start by writing a pilot for a series that I'm adapting from a play that I wrote. So I wrote this play called Suspension, Afrofuturist dystopian high school rebellion play. 5 Chicago teens rebel against a dystopian disciplinary code that is rolled out in their school. And when one of their friends go missing, they must rebel against the system to find her. And so, it's an extrapolation kind of like where we are right now with police in schools, and sort of imagines the dystopian ends to which we might arrive if we continue on this path. So in school, suspension is young people being literally suspended upside down from the ceiling.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, that's hard body karate. You'll get there though. You'll get there.
So I've written the play, and the play has had tons of development, but it has some pretty ambitious production elements. So I think it'll be better suited for screen. So writing that pilot is kind of like the next thing on my writing docket. But for stage, so I've written a play already called Florescent in Canfield, which is the intersection in Ferguson where Darren Wilson pursued Mike Brown and later killed him. It's also the intersection where me, along with a group of Chicago artists, encountered a group of protesters in Ferguson who camped out at that intersection for 47 days and vowed to camp there until Darren Wilson was indicted, camped there until they were forcibly removed by the Ferguson police. And the relationship that me and my brother and other Chicago artists, poets, photographers, journalists formed with those protesters in Ferguson was the genesis of our community organization, the Let Us Breathe Collective. And so I wrote a play called Florescent in Canfield that is a dramatic reimagining of that genesis story and that experience in Ferguson. And, sort of a metaphor for all of the intersections that people found themselves at in this moment of uprising. And the play that I've been like gestating for a really long time is not a sequel, but sort of the next in that series, Holman and Fillmore. Holman and Fillmore is the intersection in Chicago where Holman Square, Chicago police black site is. So a few years ago, The Guardian came out with an article that estimated that upwards of 7,000 Chicagoans had been illegally detained and tortured there. It's also the facility where, like, when you see all the riot gear and like the military grade equipment, like that's where they store it. Also, counterterrorism unit is housed. And so in the summer of 2016, the Let Us Breathe Collective its own encampment outside of Holman Square and took over a vacant lot and dubbed it Freedom Square and claimed it as an abolitionist zone. And so I would really like to theatrically document the story of Freedom Square, but from like an Afrofuturist perspective. So like imagining that my son gets to grow up in the aftermath of police abolition, that he gets to experience a world after the carceral state has been emancipated, and what it would be like for him to sort of look back on the moments of uprising that catalyzed the reality that that he would get to live in. And so that is kind of like the sprawling concept that like I don't exactly know to shape it to a container for stage yet, but like that is the story that I've been trying to figure out how to tell for a couple of years now.
Yeah, oh, those are incredibly necessary, timely, and exciting, thrilling, actually. So you'll get them out there. So F. Anderson has 3 lines. Says they are only 3 lines in, but I think we only have 3 minutes, so that's perfect. Let's F. Anderson, do you want to share with us these 3 lines? No pressure at all. But
also, I think F. Anderson is probably Faith, who was in Good Friday earlier this year.
Oh, shout out Faith.
And was amazing in it as Kinsey. And so shout out to Faith for being amazing and being brave and sharing with us.
Faith says, "Oh no," with 4 O's. So that means, all right. Well, listen. So we've got 2 minutes. So we're gonna lightning round this bad boy. So let's go. Let's just go back and forth. What are the essential things for our aspiring playwrights out there? What are the jewels and gems and fast and loose advice we want to give them about starting and finishing? You start.
Meditate. Clear out your mental space so that you have a more expansive place from which to create.
The thing I say a lot is that you are the product, which is that, just as much as you're developing your play, like you're developing yourself, and there's a correlation there. And so you're always in a process of getting to know thyself, and the play, just like children or anything else, is a reflection of you, and that should be something that it's a really special thing. And so as you try to understand your play and you understand those characters, you're trying to understand yourself too. What else? We got 60 seconds. We got probably like 40 seconds.
Revision. I rewrote my play Octagon, like started over a whole new Word document literally 4 times. Yeah. And it's like really hard to be like, okay, so I wrote that draft and that's still not the play, but I'm committed to this idea. I'm going to write it again. Not all of my revision processes are that arduous, but it took me a couple of plays to really appreciate the workshop and development and revision. And I really think that that's where the magic of playwriting happens.
That's right on. Second, and hear your words. Like as you're writing, like get somebody to say them. You say them and record yourself and listen to them. There's no cheat code way around it. Like you are writing words that live in space, in the air. You just are. You're writing a living thing. So you can't know it until you hear it. So, okay. It's 6. Simone.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for this time. It was such a great conversation. And I'm about to share the link for Covenant. The premiere of Covenant will be in the chat right now, so please go and visit that. We will actually be back in this live stream in about 25 minutes after we give everybody a chance to watch Covenant. And Kristiana and I will have a quick talk back. If you guys want to put any questions, I'll reference both the live stream chat and this one. So we will see you soon. Thank you so much, Kristiana. Thank you so much, Idris. It was a pleasure to have you both.
Yeah.
Great seeing you all.
Great
Thank you again.
you.
Yeah, for sure. Be well, everybody.
Peace.